Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. The coronavirus crash. Markets plunging in a free fall yesterday, suffering the biggest drop since 2008. What action is President Trump taking to stop the slide? And what's the good news coming out of China? George Thomas has it all.
The White House is set to ask Congress for a payroll tax cut and economic assistance to hourly workers to help those hurt financially by the coronavirus as new cases continue to pop up across the country.
We're going to be meeting with House Republicans, Mitch McConnell, everybody, and discussing a possible payroll tax cut or relief.
Financial experts saying the relief could be a boost to public confidence.
Yeah, it would make a difference. It's going to hurt. Now it's beginning to hurt the economy in a bigger way. That will make a huge difference.
Stock markets in Asia recovered some of their losses today following their worst day since the 2008 financial crisis. Oil prices also bounced back from a record-setting fall. The Dow falling more than 2,000 points Monday, triggering a halt on trading for the first time in 2 decades after the market plunged 7%.
The markets over time have, up until now, always recovered. It might not be next month or next quarter, but we need to keep, if it's for retirement purposes, we need to keep that long-term picture in mind.
In the U.S., coronavirus cases now surpassing 700. In Washington, the president's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, self-quarantines after possibly coming into contact with a person infected with coronavirus. Several other Republican lawmakers who met with the president also quarantining themselves out of an abundance of caution. Meanwhile, the streets of Florence practically empty this morning after the Italian government placed the entire country of some 60 million people under quarantine. Overnight, residents of the Italian capital stood in long lines stockpiling food as schools, universities, restaurants, and all social gatherings banned until April 3rd. 9,000 cases of the coronavirus have been confirmed in Italy. 463 people have died so far, the largest numbers outside of China. Israel is taking the unprecedented step of quarantining all international travels for 2 weeks upon arrival.
Here at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport, you can see the impact. Normally, there would be thousands of travelers coming and going through Israel's main international airport. Now it's nearly deserted.
In Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the virus outbreak, some patients who had the most severe cases now recovering. Beijing saying its efforts to control the virus are working, as government officials reported the lowest number of new cases since January. Chinese President Xi Jinping visiting medical workers and patients in Wuhan for the first time today, a signal perhaps that the country has finally brought the outbreak under control.
But if we can see a country have more than 80,000 cases, now start to see a decline, that is more than hope. That is evidence, of showing that this can be done.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Thanks, George. The most amazing thing, though, the interest rates. When you look at a 2-year Treasury coming in for about 0.25% of the interest, when you look at the 10-year at about 0.5%, and you look at the 30-year bond yielding about 1% interest, it is unbelievable, unprecedented. And, of course, people are rushing out to refinance mortgages at these low rates. And I advise people to do it as quick as you can because the money might be drying up, but somebody is betting on a collapse of our economy worldwide. It's just incredible what this coronavirus, plus the cut in oil prices, which is taking the Brent down to about $30 a barrel, which again is unprecedented. We've never seen anything quite like it. In my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this before. And I don't know if any of you have either, but it's just an extraordinary state of affairs. But here's something we can do to help you. Don't be afraid of this stuff. I think if you're healthy and your immune system is working, our Laurie Johnson said 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And so we've been putting out a book called Build a Better Gut. We've had a lifetime about 233,000 requests. Just recently, it's been 27,000. We'll give these to you free. Why not be healthy? Why not, you don't have to fear this stuff if you really are healthy. It's the people who have impaired immune systems and something else going on in their bodies, and usually the ones who are struck by this coronavirus. So it could be nothing worse than a bad cold. We also have a news alert, coronavirus, what you need to know. We'll give this to you. And in the back of it is Psalm 91 that tells you, comforting from the Lord. So we'll give these things out free. If you just call in 1-800-700-7000, CBN Today. And I noticed somebody was having a program talking about the healthy vegetables and fruit you should eat. And I'm frankly eating the same thing, but I want you to know blueberries are incredible. Strawberries are incredible. There's more micronutrients in nuts and berries that can keep you very healthy. So load up on fresh vegetables and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do that regularly, so.
That's part of my routine. That's why I have no intention of submitting to coronavirus.
There you go.
I'm not going to do it. I will not submit. All right. Well, there are now more than 700 coronavirus cases in the United States, but America's top doctor says not to worry. The administration is up to the challenge of fighting this virus. John Jessup has more on that story.
Thanks, Pat. U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams is on the front lines of the government's fight against the coronavirus. Monday, he spoke with CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy about what the American public should know about the virus and the administration's efforts to mitigate its impact.
The U.S. Surgeon General tells CBN News his priority is to keep the outbreak in perspective, not worrying about over or even underselling it. So yes, it is a serious global threat, but Dr. Jerome Adams says the White House is on top of it.
Thank you.
An elbow bump from the U.S. Surgeon General, his version of a handshake amid a health crisis.
We do know there are some high-risk groups, and we want people to be aware if they're at high risk.
That includes seniors with underlying conditions like diabetes or heart and lung disease. A majority of the deaths in the U.S. focused around a Washington state elder care center.
People over 60 are much more likely to have complications, have to be hospitalized, need medical attention, and people over 80 are the ones who are dying at the highest rate from coronavirus.
Masks and hand sanitizers are sold out. The big question is, do they work? Are they effective in stopping the spread of the virus?
Well, masks are not effective in preventing the general public from getting coronavirus. Most masks just protect other people from you. They don't protect you from them.
Hand sanitizers do work, but not as effective as hand washing.
I know you got a lot of questions.
Health officials have been fielding questions and concerns after the virus passed the point of containment.
You will likely see a few coronavirus cases in your community by the time this is all said and done, but that doesn't mean that people have to be harmed, that people have to die. If we protect those who are most at risk.
The number of cases around the world surpassing 110,000. This as New York declares a state of emergency and calls for more testing.
Let the states test, let private labs test, let's increase as quickly as possible.
We expect testing to go up tremendously over the next week. We went from several thousand tests last week to 1 million tests out there right now.
Now, Dr. Adams is stressing preparedness over panic. That includes avoiding close contact with sick people, not touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, and washing your hands frequently. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, the White House.
Good advice. Thanks, Ben. Well, the coronavirus now an issue on the campaign trail with the two leading Democratic candidates attacking President Trump's response. Senator Bernie Sanders saying the virus is another reason the country needs his Medicare for All proposal, a plan his opponent Joe Biden opposes. Two square off in 6 primary states today, the big prize, Michigan. Sanders needs a win there, but several polls show Joe Biden with a double-digit lead as he's picked up endorsements from former campaign rivals Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. Well, African-American voters helped deliver Joe Biden's landslide victory in South Carolina, kicking off his Super Tuesday turnaround. However, some analysts believe Democrats can't take black voters for granted. As Charlene Aaron reports, a growing number are asking the question, what have the Democrats done for us lately?
A recent poll found that 54% of African Americans believe the Democratic Party isn't paying enough attention to their needs. It's an issue leading a growing number to rethink their choices at the ballot box. For decades, African Americans have been a key voting bloc for Democrats. In 2016, 89% of black voters supported Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. Now, a movement called Blexit, which means the exit of black Americans from the Democrat Party, is encouraging African Americans to abandon the status quo. Conservative firebrand Candace Owens started the organization that now boasts chapters in several states.
Black Americans are waking up. They're realizing that they've been sleeping at the wheel. And really what I'm saying is just to embrace your futures. You can be in the driving seat of your future.
Danielle Robinson is a member of the North Carolina Blexit.
This is not a quiet time at all. It is an all-in time. And those that are fighting this battle, those of us that are part of Blexit, we are all in because we've got nothing to lose because we've lost too much already.
Robinson, a devout Christian, recently became a Republican. She says she's proud of specific inroads President Trump has made into the Black community. They include historically low unemployment for African Americans, prison reform, and allocating a record amount of federal money to historically Black colleges.
Regardless of if you like him or not, his results are undeniable. I never expected to have a president deliver in such a way.
Some liberals agree. Following the president's recent State of the Union address, CNN analyst Van Jones issued this warning to his fellow Democrats.
We got to wake up, folks. There's a whole bubble thing that goes on. We say, well, he said S-hole nations, therefore all Black people are going to hate him forever. That ain't necessarily so. And I think what you're going to see him do is say, you may not like my rhetoric, but look at my results, look at my record to Black people. And if he narrowcasts that, it's going to be effective.
Paris Dennard of Black Voices for Trump says it's time for African Americans to compare the president's results to the lack of progress in big cities run by Democrats.
When you look at the impact on the ground, Baltimore and Detroit, Atlanta, there is high crime, there's a lot of problems that are there, but there's an opportunity that's growing because of President Trump. And I think more and more Black Americans are waking up to the fact that we might have to give Donald Trump another chance, and we might have to give the Republican Party, not just at the president, but down ballot, a first look.
Meanwhile, Robinson, who has faced backlash for her new political views, urges other African American believers to consider their values.
They have fooled us every election into voting against God or voting, diminishing freedom of religion, and they cause us to forget what's not working. And we're not doing that anymore. As a community, as Christians, we're coming into alignment.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Pat, an interesting conversation there.
But I think, folks, we can't have this identity politics where we've broken down and, okay, these are African Americans and these don't agree with the Anglos and so forth. We're supposed to be all Americans, and I think it's time we come together. And the idea of separating this country into various voting blocks on account of race and that identity because of their race or their gender or their sexual preferences or something, I think that's wrong. But I'm glad to see some of these people. But so many African Americans, they love the Lord. They are very strong pro-family people. They're very strong for life. They believe in the Bible. They believe in prayer and all these things. And yet when they vote for the particular party they've been assigned to, those people who are in the leadership are advocating policies with which the majority of the African Americans don't agree. And yet they go along anyhow because that's what they're supposed to do. I'm reading a book now about Abraham Lincoln, and the truth is it was the Democrat Party that was pro-slavery before the Civil War. Lincoln was the Republican Party, and they're the ones that issued the Emancipation Proclamation and tried to stop slavery after the Civil War. That was the Republicans. So the roles have been reversed over the history, and we need to remember, and when people are voting, well, you've got to toe the party line or we won't let you in, and you're whatever they've got names for them that I won't go into, but, an Uncle Tom and things like that, if they don't vote Democrat. Well, I think it's time that they begin to realize we're going to vote for our conscience, we're going to vote our beliefs, we're going to vote for those candidates, regardless of party and regardless of race, that share our points of view. And if that's happening, I think it's a good thing for America. Well, it's amazing what's happening in Tennessee and how the people are coming together. John has more on that.
That's right, Pat. They don't call Tennessee the volunteer state for nothing. Relief agencies in Nashville report they're impressed with the number of people turning out to help victims of last week's tornadoes. CBN's Operation Blessing is among those groups hard at work. Volunteers out in full force helping protect homes that have lost roofs in the storm and clearing out furniture and valuables from damaged homes. And Pat, tragedy just uncovering some of the best in the American spirit.
It's just amazing. And Operation Blessing, by the way, has delivered 31,000 pounds of emergency supplies, cleaning supplies, food, bottled water. And they're down there helping, and they're helping rebuild these homes and so forth. And thousands of volunteers are helping. If you want to participate, we hope you do, it's Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. And you can just call or write or email or however you communicate. It's CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Or you can visit our CBN.com, Operation Blessing. We're down there helping those terrible, the results of those terrible tornadoes that hit Nashville. It's just an awful human tragedy.